Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the organizing committee and Professor Tarek Mansour Muhammad for giving me the opportunity to send this video, so I can virtually take part to the conference. I am sorry I can't attend the conference in Cairo, but I hope that my paper will still be interesting for you. Prayers is a title you can often find as an entry in papyrological volumes, because there we find various kinds of texts written on different materials for different purposes, from private devotion to liturgical ceremonies. Among the texts with prayers used in liturgies, some contain commemorations of the Patriarch of Alexandria and the local bishop, and then all the bishops, the clergy and the God's people. In ancient Egyptian liturgies, the so-called Saint Mark, Saint Basil and Saint Gregory liturgies, the commemorations of Patriarch and bishops were reported twice. First, in the faithful prayers, which concern many aspects of everyday life. Second, in the litanies in the anaphora, the most important part of the liturgy. In this section, the main figures of the Church from its origin are listed, and among them there are, of course, the Patriarch and the local bishop. Prayers for patriarchs and bishops were written not only in liturgical books, but sometimes they were copied also on artifacts intended to a more short-lived use, if compared to the elegant and precious codices containing the entire liturgy. A single papyrus or parchment sheet, a wooden tablet or an ostracon could be suitable for writing one specific prayer or a series of prayers. The content of such kinds of prayers was always the same with recurrent forms, and the prayers themselves were not modified all along the centuries. From the 5th century onwards, they are attested without any difference in Greek, Coptic, and later Arabic liturgical manuscripts. For this reason, it is extremely difficult to date the papyri in an accurate way, unless we find other elements which we already know thanks to different sources, like, for example, the names of Alexandrian patriarchs. In some prayers, the names were not written, but were replaced with the pronoun deina. It was on the reader's part to read aloud the name of the sitting prelates. But in some others, the contents of such prayers reflected the historical and social background, and we can read the actual names of patriarchs and bishops who lived in a specific place and time. Here is a list of Greek papyri with prayers for the patriarch and bishops, of which I would like to give a short description. Number 1 is an ostracon from the Petri Museum with 2 prayers, one for the peace and one for the Papa, that is the Patriarch of Alexandria. Number 2 is the Berlin Papyrus inventory number 3602. It is a parchment sheet from the 7th century, broken at the top. A thank offering of a bishop called John is mentioned. Then the prayer is for the rest in peace of Alexandrian archbishops. In the subsequent list, St. Mark the Evangelist appears first, followed by the names of the patriarchs from Peter to Anastasius. This means that the text was written under the Patriarchate of Andronicus, sitting from 619 to 626, who succeeded Anastasius. Number 3 is the Boston tablet. It is a wooden tablet from the 7th century. There is no prayer, but only the list of patriarchs. The last one in the list is Andronicus, and he turns out to be sitting at the time when the text was written. Number 4 is the Luxor diptych, two panels, though incomplete, made of ivory. On panel A, there are prayers for the Patriarch, the Bishop, all the clergy and God's people, as well as for those who offer the gifts. Then follows a list of the Alexandrian Patriarchs, starting from Mark's successor, Anianus, until Benjamin, sitting from 626 to 665. The name of Benjamin's successor, Agathon, is maybe written in the upper margin. On panel B, we find a short prayer for the bishop, followed by the list of the local bishops, probably of Hermontis. Number 5 is a fragment of a parchment leaf from a diptych in Greek and Coptic. Greek text mentions the thank offering of the archbishop and of the Orthodox bishop. Names have been erased here and replaced by Benjamin and Eunomos. It is written probably under the Patriarchate of Benjamin. Number 6 is a PSI, and it is a papyrus sheet with a regular shape. It contained almost 5 prayers, each one ending with the words Tu Kyriou de Tomen, Lord, we beseech you. Number 7 is a sheet of parchment written on both sides. It contains prayers for the sitting archbishop and bishop. Instead of proper names, we find the letters Nim, according to Coptic use, or Delta Iota, that is Hodeina, according to Greek use. Number 8 is Berlin Papyrus inventory number 9755. It is a small parchment codex. In 20 pages, there are 2 sets of prayers for the faithful. Each set of prayers has its own prayer for the Patriarch and for the Bishop. Finally, number 9, Berlin Papyrus inventory number 17612. It is a sheet of paper, made maybe from a vertical scroll. It is broken at the top and at the bottom. It contains the commemorations of John the Baptist, Saint Stephen, and all the martyrs. In the subsequent section, we find prayers for the living prelates, as I will illustrate in detail. I will now show you the details about 2 of the pieces I mentioned in the above list, that is number 6, the PSI, and number 9, the Berlin paper. They were both assigned to the 6th century in their first editions, but I will present here new identifications of the bishops mentioned and consequently discuss the elements for a new dating. PSI is a papyrus fragment coming from excavations in 1937 at Antinopolis. It is dated in the 6th century in all papyrological studies because of its subject. According to the so-called traditional interpretation, in the second prayer, the bishop Cael and the bishop Severus, who is identified as the Patriarch of Antioch, are mentioned as if they were still alive. That's because they are wished long-lived too. In this slide, you can see the text of the prayer with the names of Cael and Severus, which are crucial elements to correctly set a date to the papyrus. The translation is, "For the defense and protection and permanence and long live of our Holy Father the Archbishop Abba Cael, and for the Bishop, our Shepherd and Master Severus, and for the other Orthodox bishops, rightly dividing the word of truth. Lord, we beseech you." So, Cael doesn't appear to be a bishop, but an archbishop, a title which in Egypt was assigned only to the Patriarch of Alexandria. Cael is undoubtedly the well-known Patriarch of the 8th century, who kept the episcopal see for a long time, around 24 years, from 743 to 767. In the prayer, they invoke long live to the Archbishop Kyle, to the Bishop Severus, and to all the other bishops. It is then unmistakable that the Bishop Severus was still alive when the prayer was composed. As a consequence, we can no longer identify that Bishop Severus mentioned in line 6 with Severus of Antioch, who lived instead almost 200 years before. It looks highly probable that the bishop and our shepherd and master Severus is the bishop of Antinopolis, which is the place where the papyrus was found, under the Patriarchate of Kyle. As of today, we have no evidence of a bishop named Severus of Antinopolis, but we only know the name of one bishop of Antinopolis in the 8th century, Menas. Now, the Berlin Papyrus inventory number 17612. It deserves some consideration after the publication by Kurt Treu in 1971, specifically for mentioning a certain Abba Philotheus and Abba Severus again. This sheet is made of paper instead of parchment, as it was said in the Editio Princeps. The dating proposed for the Berlin fragment in the Editio Princeps goes back to around the 6th century, but the use of paper would seem quite unusual for that age. On the basis of this element, we have to move the dating to, at least, the 9th or 10th century, when such material starts to be widespread in Egypt. Besides the kind of material, in my opinion, the writing can also be traced back to a more recent age. The text is divided into 3 parts. The first one contains the commemorations of St. John the Baptist, St. Stephen, the prophets, the apostles, and all the martyrs. The second one is specifically about a thank offering for an archbishop and a bishop. In line 17, in fact, it does not appear the name Ioannou, as suggested in the Editio Princeps, but instead the expression to Eucharisterion, the thank offering. The subject of the third part, unfortunately, is not identifiable. In the second part, the number of characters mentioned and their identification is unsure. The identification as Saint Philotheus of Antioch and Severus of Antioch, as suggested in the Editio Princeps, doesn't appear to be convincing, neither considering each single figure, nor for the order in which they appear. In both cases, the identifications are most likely wrong. In the slide, you'll find the transcription and the translation of lines 14-18. The translation is thank offering of Abba Philotheus, Orthodox archbishops, and 4 letters unknown, Patriarch, 4 letters unknown, of Abba Severus, Orthodox bishop. Actually, it is clear instead that we are talking about prelates in office, the Archbishop of Alexandria and a local bishop. Bearing in mind the kind of media, paper, as well as the kind of writing, it is possible to make a comparison with 2 well-known figures that lived during the 10th century. In the list of the Alexandrian patriarchs, we find Philotheus in office from 979 to 1003. Severus is the local bishop. We don't know which diocese he belongs to, because the provenance of the paper is unknown. But there are 2 known Egyptian bishops named Severus, who were in office during the age of Philotheus' Patriarchate. Severus, bishop of Busiris, and Severus, bishop of Hermopolis. The latter is one of the most prominent figures of the Egyptian church during the 10th century. The hypothesis that he is actually the Orthodox Bishop Severus mentioned in the Berlin paper is very appealing, even though it is not confirmed, unfortunately. Sure enough, it would not be surprising that the Berlin paper may come from the Hermopolis area. I did not deal with the issue of lines 15-16, which are some way difficult to read for fully and unambiguous way to understand the text. It is not clear if there was a third person mentioned or if the terms Archbishop and Patriarch referred both to Philotheus. In conclusion, besides this feature of the Berlin paper which is not totally clear, I believe that the two examples that I showed here are somehow meaningful. In the papyri with prayers for the Patriarch and the bishops, it is very important to read and understand the names of the figures when they appear, and to compare the contents with the kind of material and the age of writing. In the two papyri I took into consideration, it was possible to identify the Alexandrian Patriarch and the local bishop. In the PSI, Cael is the Patriarch and Severus is the Bishop of Antinopolis, a previously unknown figure. The dating goes back to the 8th century and not to the 6th century, as it was previously believed. In the Berlin paper, Philotheus is the Patriarch and Severus is the Bishop, probably of Hermopolis. As for the dating, it goes back to the 10th century and not to the 6th century, as it was previously believed. Generally speaking, in the two examples, it is clear that a careful study of the documentary evidence allows to collect newer and more precise information to recreate the history of Egypt in the Christian age. Thank you.